if you've never seen Dragon's Den, it's the show where 5 people who are putatively investors sit in chairs, and people take their hearts, their souls, their desires, their dreams, and then are slaughtered for the self-aggrandizement of the investors, like me. It's one definition. Early on in the show, a fellow came on in the first series, and he stood up in front of me, and he said, it was a peculiar way to pitch a business, I have to admit. He basically said, who here has a dog? Myself and Peter Jones, the tall guy in the end, raised our hands. He said, you know, I know one thing about your dogs. They stink. Now, I just, not particularly related to this portion of the day. If you're asking me for money, not a good way to start, right? You know, I have children. They like their dog, whether he smells or not. He and Peter got into a discussion. Peter said he liked the smell of his dog. I didn't really want to talk about it on national TV. So when they came back to the discussion that I did want to talk about, I thought the guy said he'd invented a mat that would suck the smell off my dog, which I thought, God, that's actually pretty cool. I'm a geek, I know. But what he'd actually said was he'd invented a mat called the Maxi Mat that would not acquire the smell of your dog, and thus the putative, unique benefit of this product was that you could leave it in your kitchen, your dog would sit on it, and your kitchen would still smell just as good or whatever as it did, but it wouldn't have essence of dog added to the issue. And I said to him, being a potential consumer of such a product, I said, well, as a consumer of such a product, I wouldn't buy this. And so he put me into a category I'd never heard of before. I was the wrong kind of customer. And I said, what does that mean, I'm the wrong kind of customer? He said, well, you won't buy it. You're a bad customer. I said, it's potentially got a lot of bad customers. I said, how do you know? How do you know that customers want this? Because he wanted like 49 quid for it, and I wasn't buying it. So he made the first of 2 of the most famous mistakes you could ever make. In fact, it's such a famous mistake, I've given it a name. It's called the ugly baby syndrome. It's sort of self-referencing, but I shall explain it anyways, won't I? So let's just say, for purpose of discussion, a mother comes up with a newborn baby in her arms, and this newborn baby, as sometimes happens, is really ugly. What do you say? Do you say, my, that's an ugly baby? No, of course you don't. You say, you're polite. We're all polite, right? Social fiction. You say, he looks like his father. I don't know what you say. You say, he'll grow into that nose. But whatever you say is, you don't say, my God, that's an ugly baby. He said to me, I've shown this to my family, my friends, everyone, and they've all told me this Maxi Mat is going to sell. Well, with due respect, it's your friends and family. They have to lie, right? It's strangers that don't have to lie. So I said to him, well, why don't you go out and go to that big dog show, Crufts, which I'd heard of. We don't have anything like it in the United States. I was really quite amazed at how many people went to this thing and how important it was to so many people, so I'm not going to make fun of Crufts or people and their dogs. And I said, why don't you get a booth, and why don't you stand in the booth and try to sell this thing to strangers? He said, you don't realize you cannot scale a business to being a huge business from one small booth. I said, I completely agree. We're not debating how to scale your business. We're debating whether you've got one at all. And he said, you understand there's no competition. I replied, do you understand sometimes there's a reason for it? The fact of the matter is, there was no competition, he said. Well, first of all, there's always competition. It goes back to the question of what is the definition of a sustainable product. The definition of a sustainable product is that it has an advantage, that that advantage is measurable in the marketplace by somebody else's value, the value the potential customer puts on it, and that's its price, not anything you invent. And that they're doing it some way without you today. They've existed for the story of mankind in 10,000 years of pre-civilization and civilization. The Maxi Mat had not yet existed. How were we solving the problem? And I said to him, I have your competition in my house. He said, I don't believe it. I said, I do. It's a much more complex system. It involves a blanket, the dog, 3 children, a washing machine, a dryer, and a bathroom. Let me explain how it works. The dog sits on the blanket gets smelly, the blanket goes into the washing machine. I admit I've never actually seen it happen myself, but I rely upon the fact that I am not completely good with washing machines, and it comes back out, and meanwhile the kid and the dog go into the bathroom, the kid's going clean and the dog goes in dirty, and when they come back out, the dog's clean, the kid's dirty. It's clearly a transfer process. It's family entertainment. And I said, the sunk cost investment is huge. I said, a dryer, a washer, these are expensive. I said, kids, you have no idea. there's a lot of money invested in my current system. And I said, I'm not really inclined to get rid of any of them, including the children. And he thought, you're making fun of me. I said, of course I am. You're an idiot. I didn't actually say that. I might have actually said that, but it didn't appear on TV, which is good.